Welcome to the ExecMBA podcast. I'm your host, Brett Twitty, and you are listening to a new episode. On this episode of the podcast, we're excited to share a recent webinar that we've decided to turn into a podcast. This conversation features current part-time MBA students discussing the elective period of the part-time MBA program. I think you're really going to enjoy this conversation. As always, if this conversation is helpful for you, please like this episode and subscribe to the ExecMBA podcast so you never miss an update. And remember, you can always check the episode description for links to Darden blogs, social channels, and more. And now, without further ado, here's a conversation with current part-time MBA students discussing the elective period of the UVA Darden part-time MBA program. All right. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Brett Twitty. I'm the Managing Director of Admissions for the Professional Degree Programs here at the Darden School of Business. This is a very, very exciting evening. This is the fourth installment in an ongoing series of conversations we've been having about the academic experience in our professional degree programs. We did two sessions about our Executive MBA program focused on the core curricular period and then the elective experience. And we've done one session so far on the part-time MBA program focused on the first year experience. And tonight we'll be talking about electives, as you can see. Just to kind of level set and give you a little bit of context for those of you who are just learning about our program, a little bit about the structure and design. It is a work and professional program based here in the Washington, D.C. metro area. I'm coming to you live from our space here in Roslyn. Students have evening weeknight classes in this program. During the first 18 months of the program, which is the core curricular period, you have class on Monday and Thursday evenings from 6 to 9:30 p.m. with weeks alternating between in-person and virtual delivery. In the elective period, which we'll talk about tonight, classes can be on Monday, Wednesday, or Thursday evenings, still between that 6 to 9:30 period. And the weeks would continue to follow that sort of in-person, virtual cadence. Students in this program, though, do get to spend time down in Charlottesville. And if you think about kind of the program in two distinct phases, you have the core curricular period, which is 18 months, and then you have the elective period. And that core curricular period is bracketed by 2 week-long residencies in Charlottesville. You have residency 1, which is the first thing you do as a part-time MBA student here at the Darden School of Business. And then 18 months go by, you do the core curriculum, and then you have what's called residency 2 or R2. That's the last thing you do as a cohort in the part-time MBA program, because when you get to the elective period as a part-time MBA student, that's really when the customization, personalization comes into the program. Students can choose how fast or how slow they'd like to complete their remaining credits as they work towards the 60 credits required for graduation. And I mentioned before this kind of alternating in-person week, virtual week, in-person week, virtual week cadence. But the part-time MBA program is hybrid in nature, 60% in person, 40% online. And that's been the structure since the launch of the program. You may know we have 3 classes of part-time MBA students right now. We actually have our first graduates from the part-time MBA program now. We have a larger group finishing up in May, and we are now recruiting the 4th class of part-time MBA students. So still early days for the Darden School with part-time MBA students in the part-time MBA program. But I can remember we were doing these sessions back in the summer of 2021. So we've come a long way since then. So a few more things to kind of keep in mind. 60 credits is what's required for graduation across all of Darden's MBA programs, whether you're full-time, part-time, or executive MBA. The first 18 months of the program, as you'll see in the subsequent slide, is a set curriculum. It's the Darden core. Students take the same core here at Darden, whether you're a full-time, part-time, or executive MBA student. Everybody takes the same core classes. The core here at Darden is always taught by full-time Darden faculty. Electives can be taught by a broader set of faculty, which is certainly inclusive of full-time Darden faculty, but also adjuncts, professors of practice. That's true across all of our programs. The part-time MBA program, about 34.5 credits are done through the core, and 25.5 credits are done through the elective. So it's not quite 50-50, but you still have a good bulk of the credits that you're working through during the elective period. That translates to about 17 electives. A general course here at Darden is 1.5 credits. Why all this talk about credits? Well, part-time MBA students are billed on a per credit basis. So as you think about your experience as a part-time MBA student, one of the things you're going to want to think about is how many credits you're taking in a given semester, because that's ultimately going to influence the overall tuition and fees that you'll be billed. So something important for you to kind of internalize as you're even doing the research. And you can see here the part-time MBA program is unique amongst Darden's MBA programs in that it has a flexible completion timeline. The first 18 months is set. It's a core curricular period. Then I mentioned you move into that elective period where you can choose how fast or slow you'd like to complete your remaining credits. The fastest you can complete the program is 28 months. The slowest is 48 months. And the standard pacing is 33 months. Now, a couple things to keep in mind as you think about this sort of elective period. You have to be enrolled in at least one class. is the general rule. In terms of the upper limit of classes you could take, it just depends on your schedule and what you might be able to accommodate. And certainly possible for a student to maybe take 4 classes. You could take, for example, 3 evening classes in an executive MBA elective, or you could add on an independent study or an asynchronous elective. So the upper end is a little bit kind of a function of what you feel like you can do as a student, what you can accommodate. You have to finish at the end of a semester. That is the University of Virginia rule. And so as you look at this, 28 months is essentially the 7 semester plan. A semester is about 4 months here at the University of Virginia. 33 months is about the 8 semester plan. There's a 9 semester plan, which is 36 months, 10 semester, 40 months, et cetera, et cetera. And then 48 months, which is the 12 semester plan. So as you're thinking about these kind of endpoints in the program, you won't ever hear anybody who's finished like in 30 months or 31 months. It's going to be 28 months or 33 months or 36 months because you have to finish at the end of the semester. So again, something for you to think about. And this is just a visual to help you contextualize what we're talking about this evening. Now, this is an example of how a student could finish the program in 33 months. 33 months is generally regarded as the standard pacing for this program. You can see here in teal, this is the core curricular period. And you can see some of the things that the student is doing to kind of get ahead on their electives. They have done an elective, global elective in the fall of their second year. So part-time MBA students, there's not a global course requirement, but students have the option of participating in a global elective in the fall of their second year. Interestingly enough, this is actually students have the opportunity to join global residency with executive MBA students. That's the current structure of this global elective. And there's typically 2 to maybe 3 global residencies offered during this period that students could join. There's also a short January term elective students can take in their second year with permission from the program team. The January term is a short 10-day term between the fall and spring semester. But you can see here, really the bulk of electives start after that core period. And this student, since they've already taken their first 2 here across the global elective and the J term, they are really starting to pick up electives 3, 4, et cetera, as they work towards the 17 electives or 25 and a half credits. They've obviously continued to do a J term elective here into their third year. This is an example of how you can continue to sort of stay on that two classes per quarter schedule. If you look at the core here, part-time students really generally take about 2 classes at a time. And so this is an example of how you can continue to do this. If you do not take these first few electives here, and you don't do this J-term elective here, you would see at least a few of these quarters would have 3 electives because a student would have to take more than 2 classes to get to that 60 credits required for graduation if they wanted to finish on that 33-month plan. So hopefully that's not too much information overload. Just wanted to give you a sense of some of the flexibility or customization that comes in the elective period as students kind of think about how they want to schedule their classes. And the thing you should know as you kind of think about this experience is we're talking about part-time classes, but executive MBA students also have part-time MBA students also have the opportunity to take electives with executive MBA students and vice versa. And so if you think about the full menu of electives that might be available to a part-time MBA student in a given elective quarter, there's probably 3 or 4 that meet on that part-time MBA schedule, evening, weeknight. But there's probably 10 or so that fall on the executive MBA schedule. So a student with a lot of schedule flexibility who might be able to do a class that meets on a weekend with online course component during the week will have even more choice. But of course, if you wanted to stay on an evening, weeknight schedule that you become accustomed to as a part-time MBA student, you can do that as well. So I'll pause there. I'm sure you'll have more questions as we go along, but just wanted to give you a little bit of background, at least kind of give some context for our conversation tonight with our current students. And so pleased to be joined by a couple of members of our part-time MBA class of 2026 and a couple of members of our part-time MBA class of 2025 who are basically almost done with the program, which is amazing. Jane, can I come to you first just to introduce yourself? Can you tell us a little bit more about who you are and your background?
Sure. So my name is Jane. You'll find me on LinkedIn as Jane Barr, not Jane Schlendorf, because I got married during this program. But I am a member of the class of 2025. I am graduating in August, so not the May on the standard plan, but I'm graduating in August. And I work for PwC.
All right, thanks, Jane. Alexis, can I come to you next? Tell us a little bit more about you.
Sure. I'm Alexis Dominique. I am class of 2025. I graduate next month. Super excited for that. Background is in nonprofit work. I work in digital testing innovations over at Planned Parenthood. So,
All right. Thank you, and congratulations to both you and Jane. It's a special year for our part-time MBA program. Now that we have graduates, it's exciting to see y'all at this point in the program. Meg, can I come to you next? So we've got a couple of students from our class of 2026 here.
Sure, yeah. My name is Meg, and unfortunately, I don't graduate until May of 2026, so still got a year ahead of me. But I work in the health technology space, and so my background is actually as a licensed pharmacist, and I formerly worked in more of a nonprofit setting as a pharmacist. So I've always had really non-traditional career, but excited to be here this afternoon.
All right. Last but not least, Jerry, tell us a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah, also nice to meet you guys. My name is Jerry, also a member of the part-time 26ers, and will also be aiming to graduate in May of next year. I have kind of come up in the CPG industry, so I work for Altria, and I've actually worked there coming up on 6 years ever since I graduated college, so I've been with the same company the whole time.
All right. And for those of you who are wondering, out of this first class, the class of 2025, we had about 9 people finish in December, which would be the 28-month plan. We had a few students who took a J-term class and kind of finished at that point, although you have to maintain enrollment over the course of the subsequent semester. So even though they're technically finished, they will really kind of wrap things up in May. And then we have a large group of folks who are finishing on that 33-month plan in May, but not everybody. But just in case you're curious about how things are playing out here. So Alexis, I want to come to you for this next question. How did you decide you wanted to pursue an MBA and what led you to Darden?
oh, good old MBA. I was pandemic, that happened. I had transitioned out of the Peace Corps, started my job, and I knew I wanted to go back to school post Peace Corps. That time just came a little bit faster. So I was like, what can I do? I like nonprofit, but I don't know if I only want to ever do nonprofit. And an MBA seemed like the perfect thing. You can transfer it to the nonprofit industry, you can take it and go to the private sector. It had a lot more variety of what that life could look like. And so I was like, I knew I did not want to stop working in order to go back to school. I knew I wanted to do something part time. I was already in the Maryland area. So I was like, who's available? What's new? And Darden was the perfect match.
All right. Yeah. And for kind of think about the schedule, evening weeknight schedule, you do have to be within kind of easy commuting distance of our location in Roslyn. We have a few students down in Annapolis, a few folks over in Baltimore, and I think the furthest away is we have a couple students down in Richmond, but 90+% of the students in this program live within 30 miles or less of our location in Roslyn. For those of you who are kind of wondering, these people make it work. Well, they live pretty close by typically. So, Meg, how about for you? How did you get interested in pursuing an MBA, and what led you to Darden?
Yeah, so I already kind of mentioned that my interests as, coming out of pharmacy school were a bit non-traditional, wasn't as interested in direct patient care, and had really found myself in roles that were more aligned with, what you typically see in like kind of a strategy role, and it was doing things that were more in a business space. And so I also started to realize that the business of healthcare was very complex, and started to reflect on the fact that I had become a pharmacist because I actually had wanted to own a pharmacy one day. And so for me, it was just sort of this recognition of, I always had these really strong interests in better understanding business, and want to kind of have a leg to stand on, if you will, too, as I continue forward in my career, being that, my trajectory was always going to be a bit more non-traditional. So that's what led me to pursue an MBA.
And how did Darden get on your radar?
Darden was kind of always on my radar. I was pretty one and done and kind of focused on Darden from the start, just because I live in the Arlington area, and I had actually initially seen Darden back when it was only an executive program. And I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to kind of make that commitment. And so I was really excited when I saw that there was a part-time offering. And that's, Darden had kind of always been on my radar. And then as I learned more about the program, it just continued to be my top pick.
All right, Jerry, how about you? How did you get interested in pursuing an MBA?
Yeah. So I think I got an MBA for two reasons. The biggest one is that I'm very fortunate that my company provides a lot of like support for pursuing higher education. And so a large part of it was also just feeling like, not wanting to leave money on the table, knowing that this was an opportunity that was available to me. Definitely wanted to, take advantage of that. The other thing for me, as far as why, wanted to pursue an MBA was really around, I mentioned I've been at the same company for like 6-ish years, right? And I graduated undergrad from business in marketing, right? And, I had that very classic experience that I think a lot of folks have, which is that you get into the real world and it's like, oh, this is nothing like what I was learning in school. And so, even though I technically, graduated from business school, I still felt like there was so many parts of just like kind of being an effective leader, trying to succeed in role. I wanted to kind of broaden my horizons and just learn about like other disciplines. As well as as far as why I chose Darden, I think I'd be remiss if I didn't mention just the amount of prestige that is behind like the actual like university name. But actually, I work fully remote. So when I was deciding between different MBA programs, I was actually deciding also between just like where I wanted to live and, what cities I felt like I could, be in. And Darden was the great choice because, it's close enough to my family. It's close. It's kind of like my company's based down in Richmond. It's kind of like the middle point between the two. Should I ever need to like go in person for anything like that? And also, I knew it was a new program, and I thought it would be kind of cool to be part of, the first couple of classes to really graduate from this program. So that's why I chose Darden.
Yeah, I think when you did your interview, I think you were in Nashville and you relocated to do
Yeah.
the program. So that does happen for our part-time program. And one of the nice things I think for students who are in that position is you all of a sudden are plugged into a network of 70 or so students. You're all starting school together, and it's not that easy to meet people in a new city sometimes. But if you're starting an MBA program as part of that experience, it can be. So, Jane, I want to come to you next. How did you get interested in pursuing an MBA, and what led you to Darden?
So my husband did his MBA and he always talked about like the amazing things it did for his career. So obviously that really inspired me to do it. I was a little bit unsure if I could do an MBA because I'm definitely on the younger side of my class. And so I didn't know if I was like old enough or I had enough work experience yet. But I ultimately decided it's something that I want to do long term. And I'm not from the East Coast and my husband's not from the East Coast. So we don't really know how long we'll be out here where all the schools are really good. And so when I started looking, I was just looking around and I didn't really know about Darden until my mom was like, well, why don't you look at Darden? And I didn't know at first that I was going to be in that first part-time class, but obviously I am. So I'm glad it worked out and it was like good timing for my search.
Yeah, students, I will say, I mean, to pick up on both your point and Jerry's point, I mean, I had students that really embraced being in the first few classes and helping the school really understand what part-time students are looking for and kind of support you need and resources and programming. That's been great. It's been something that's obviously evolved over the past few classes. Every class has kind of had different feedback and different insights to share, but it's definitely been a partnership over these first few years as we've gotten started with the program. So I want to talk a little bit about sort of just getting started in an MBA program. And Meg, can I come to you for this question? Is oftentimes people as they come to an MBA program, maybe they're not feeling totally certain about some part of their background, or just even getting started, getting back into school mode can be a challenge for folks. Was there something you felt unsure about, and how did you work through that?
Yeah, so freshman year of college, my roommate was in accounting, and so I heard all these accounting horror stories from her, and so I was just kind of really nervous about how I would do with accounting and finance and some of the real core business classes, and so that was probably the biggest hesitation. Ultimately, I did realize like having a pretty heavy quantitative background, being a pharmacist, it was actually not as bad as I anticipated. And I was also really nervous about speaking up in those classes in particular. Speaking up in general is always harder for me, but that was another thing that really drew me to this program was the case method. And I was always also really pleasantly surprised by how nice the class was and the professors were about really making it an environment where everyone felt comfortable and heard no matter what level of insight and understanding they may come into the program with. So that was the biggest thing for me.
Yeah, the sort of expectation to contribute to class is sometimes a shift for folks, depending on what your prior educational experience was. Jerry, was there anything that you felt uncertain about, and as you got started in your MBA program, and how'd you work through it?
Yeah, I think the thing that brought the most uncertainty was really just how I would balance my life. Of course, working full time and going to school full time. I remember I had reached out to one of the folks in the class above me and I'd asked, like, hey, what has your experience been like? And I heard that even though it is a part-time program, it can oftentimes feel like you're in a full-time program, just because of how busy you are constantly. That was the thing I was most unsure of. I mean, and to be completely candid, it's definitely not an easy thing to do. You have to be really great about scheduling and making sure that you have time for your friends, time for your loved ones, time for your family. Weekends become a lot more precious. And I'm grateful for having like the support of a partner who's able to help me, do things around the house and that like keep me alive, like set up grocery orders and make sure that there's like food on the table when there are times where I'm just so swamped with preparing cases and things like that. So I guess like kind of all that's to say, I think entering a program like this, it definitely is a lot of work. And so as far as like your preparation, in addition to just like maybe even more important than just like brushing up on some of like basic fundamentals, is just like making sure you have a really strong support system, making sure that you have folks in the community who can help you out, and pick up slack where like you will inevitably have something has to give, and having folks around you who can help you in those areas, I think, is really important.
Yeah, and I think starting those conversations before you begin the program and continuing those conversations as you go through, it's really hard to know exactly what a part-time program is going to look like in your life, right? We can describe it. We can say, oh, it'll be this many hours per week on average, but everybody's background's a little bit different. Every quarter is its own challenge. You get new classes every couple of months. And so depending upon the courses that you have in that particular quarter, what's going on at work, like this is going to be very much an in motion kind of fluid thing. And so checking in regularly with your support network, whether it's at work and at home, helping them understand how they can help you, and saying thank you a lot. I think it's always a good strategy. Jane, was there something you felt uncertain about as you started your MBA program, and how'd you work through it?
I think the only thing that I really felt uncertain about, which is going to sound really crazy, is that I didn't know if I was going to make friends when I started. Like, it's really nerve-wracking to show up in person on your first like residency week and you don't know anybody, or I didn't know anybody at least. But that was like shouldn't have been a fear of mine.
Yeah, to help with that a little bit, I mean, we do a lot of programming prior to the start of school in the summer. I know it's really busy, but if you can make some time even for a few events, I think it can sometimes make that first week feel a little less intimidating. But it's a good point, right? It's meeting new people for the first time. It's business school. It's a new experience. Everybody's a little bit nervous. It's interesting to me being around the first week long residency and the second week long residency, and how different those two experiences feel. You can feel the nerves a little bit in the first residency for the students, whether they be part-time MBA or executive MBA students. Everybody's sort of getting acclimated and getting to know each other. And then for part-time students, you go through 18 months of core, and then you're back in Charlottesville, another week-long residency. Everybody's friends, everybody knows each other. It's completely different dynamic. All those nerves are gone. People are just enjoying being together back in Charlottesville. But it is part of a process. So I can appreciate that, Jane. Alexis, how about for you? What did you feel uncertain about, and how'd you work through it?
Probably imposter syndrome. Showing up was like, wow, did they admit the right Alexis? Too late now. But I think just, getting there, meeting people, talking to people, getting the, I guess, flow of like how your specific class is going to work as your cohort. I feel like every cohort is a little different. And the more that you all spend time together in class and like with cases, like you start to get the rhythm of your class. And so you kind of know like how you fill in and stuff like that. I think that was probably my biggest fear, but I also think like you never really know what to expect. Also, I was cohort 1. I am the guinea pig. You all are very welcome. And so that was like, you never, like, well, what happens if it's storming? Do I still have to go to class? At the time I was living in Baltimore and I was like, that's a big commute. But honestly, you just figure it out as you go along, as life happens, you kind of figure it out. And there's always someone to reach out to on the Darden side if you need help, whether it's a professor, and you're like, hey, maybe tonight is not the night to cold call me, for whatever reason. I've had professors be very accommodating, about things like that.
All right. So thank you all for sharing that. I think it's important for people to hear, like, everybody coming into this kind of program has questions, things they feel unsure about. That's a very universal experience. So if you're looking at an MBA program and thinking, "Gosh, I'm not sure about this, that, or the other thing," everybody has those feelings. But I want to talk about your favorite. It's a question we got in the Q&A. Also something we plan to talk about. What's been your favorite thing about the program? So I'm going to start with the 25s first. Jane. What's been your favorite thing about the program so far?
I think it would have to have been the global residency I did. I was on the Italy trip. We went to 2 different cities in Italy. It was super fun. It was also like right up my alley too, because it was studying like luxury industries in Italy. So, I had a blast there. We got to see a lot of cool things, including like Dolce and Gabbana's home, like first home store, and get a tour there and learn all about that. So I really enjoyed the global residency, and I would recommend doing that if you have the opportunity.
Can you tell us about a few other things you did on the global residency? Because I think it's important for students to hear. I mean, like, these are things that you cannot do as a tourist, if you showed up in Italy. The company visits, the meeting with business executives. Can you tell us a little bit more?
Yeah, so we did two company visits a day, I think. I think we were there for 6 or 7 days. I mean, you see a lot of companies. Occasionally we had like a presenter come, so it wasn't like a company, but the first morning we had a presenter come and just tell us about the Italian economy. A couple other places we went to the King of Pesto's manufacturing facility where they make all the pesto fresh. I think he was in like a Food Network documentary. We went to a ship, like a cruise line manufacturer, which is really cool. And we got to walk around the shipyard and learn about their business. And then we went to a few other places that were related to fintech in the Italian economy, which were really interesting. So we definitely saw like a wide variety of companies and visited them, but it all kind of followed that theme of like luxury industries. And we did a cooking class.
And you're always going to do at least one or two cultural activities while you're there. So thank you for that, Jane. Alexis, what's been your favorite thing about the program so far?
The people. I love the people, and I think the alumni community has been very helpful. So whether it has been folks reaching out to learn more about the place where I work or me reaching out for like coffee chats for alumni, they've been so helpful just along the journey. And I think really that Darden community and like putting that Darden name out there, folks are so eager to help you, whether it's like, hey, do you have, can you help me case if you're, looking into consulting pathway or something like that. Even just like within our learning teams that we have, I think I got the perfect learning team. Just our vibes and our personalities, it worked itself out. But I think the people really have made the difference of like navigating the program for the better.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I think sometimes folks wonder, can you get a community in a part-time program? And I think absolutely here you can. The group of people who choose the case methods or discussion-based learning experience, I think, are oriented in that way already. So Meg, what's been your favorite thing about the program so far?
Yeah, well, I would just echo that. I also think my favorite part has been the people. I guess for me, it's been really insightful to learn just what other people do and connect with alumni and hear about their career paths and their roles. So that's just been really valuable to be immersed in over the past couple of years. I think, another aspect of the people that stands out as well is just the residency weeks that we do have are, I think, a unique and really welcomed part of this program. It is a commitment. You're taking a week out of work and you're going to Charlottesville. But I think that has really helped build a community here and helped to get to know classmates on a more personal level that I think will then just help to strengthen those connections long term. And so I've really appreciated those residency weeks to kind of, as Brett said, it really was like very nerve wracking the first time. You're just getting to know everyone. But then we just had our second residency week earlier this month, and it was just like a lot different, really fun, and just a great way to kind of like solidify a lot of those relationships before we head out into electives where we may or may not see certain classmates as much anymore. So
it's always great to be in Charlottesville, and students get to stay at the new Forum Hotel, which is very nice, and so it's a great opportunity to just kind of be there together. I think when you're here in DC, obviously things are in Roslyn, a lot going on. You have work and all kinds of stuff competing for your attention. But when you get away to Charlottesville, you have this week, so maybe a little bit more buffeted from some of that, and really get to enjoy each other's company in a way that might be a little bit more challenging, the day-to-day hustle and bustle. So, Jerry, favorite thing about the program so far? How about for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think personally, my favorite part about the program is really just being able to apply it at work. I started this program when I was 26. I'm about to turn 28. And so like within these 2 years, I think like when you're really doing the program, time can feel like it passes super quickly. Um, and so it's been cool though with the core program. I think in other in some like MBA programs, typically if you have taken classes in say like finance or marketing or accounting, like sometimes you'll have the opportunity like to opt out. Darden does not let you opt out, and I honestly think I probably would have regretted it if I opted out of some of the classes that I wasn't as psyched about, to such as accounting or finance, just because I don't know if that is where that's not like typically the subjects that speak to me. That said, for that very same reason, is probably where I've also learned the most. In the time that I've been at the program, I've also gotten, placed in different roles at my company. And so, one example is I started working on like competitive intel, right? And trying to analyze like financials of like some of our like biggest competitors, right? And be able to apply stuff that I'm like learning in finance and accounting and corporate strategy, and just like have generally better business literacy for what before it would have just been complete hieroglyphics to me. I think that now it's really cool to just be able to feel like I've learned something, apply it. And I think that has also just given me generally more confidence in just my ability to succeed both within my company and should, I pursue other opportunities, other places as well.
Yeah, that's one of the big values of doing a work professional program. You don't have to wait a year or 2 years to kind of feel that impact. It can definitely happen in real time as you go through the program. So I want to talk a little bit about electives here, the inspiration of kind of set the table and your backgrounds and what led you to Darden and kind of what you've enjoyed about the program thus far. I want to start again with the 25s here, since you've had the most opportunity to take electives. Alexis, I'll come to you first for this one. How did you think about the electives that you were taking? As we mentioned before, part-time MBA students, take 17 electives. Was there an approach that you used in terms of thinking about what you wanted to schedule or how you chose your classes?
Yeah, I would say it's all about balance for me. So I work, as we all do. I have this program. I also am planning a wedding. So that dictated a lot of my life of like how much time and energy I can dedicate to the program. And also was doing some recruiting in the fall. So that meant there was a lot on my plate. So I kind of bulked up my electives over the summer, and took extra classes because I knew in the fall I wanted to kind of chill out, in terms of like the course load. So for me, quant courses take a lot more energy. So I did less quant, more of the poet aspect. And so like right now, in the final quarter, I only have one class I'm currently taking, which has been a nice breath of fresh air. But I looked at, it didn't matter if it was online or in person, like vice versa. I even took an exec program, which was really fun. Get to meet new people and see like a different way of like learning. Also made me very grateful to take the part-time program. But for me, it was just like what classes would fit my schedule and my lifestyle of what I was trying to do at the time. So I had space and time, like I said, where I bulked up on classes and times where I did just a few classes to get me to this point now where I'm just kind of like, it's the end. It's a nice coast.
What does bulked up mean to you? How many classes were you taking during those quarters?
I took 3 for a couple of different quarters. And at one point, I think it was technically 4. It was just like a weird way the schedules lapped over. But yeah, it was easier for me to do that, knowing like the way my work is. We get very, very serious in December, and the summer is more chill. So it's like I can do more, devote more time to schoolwork in the summer.
Jane, how did you think about your elective scheduling and what electives you chose?
So I have definitely been trying to just take 2 at a time. I think I accidentally took 3 in the fall, and that was way too much. Some people can do it, but I really struggled with taking 3, so 2 was it for me. I did try an MBA course, which was kind of interesting. I went in an all-day Friday, and then it had like a Tuesday Zoom portion every once in a while, which was nice. It was nice to switch it up, and have that flexibility to be able to switch it up. And then the rest, it's just like what I have been interested in. I've been trying to stay away from like the finance ones. Not to say that those aren't great, but just not my cup of tea and not where I see my career going anyways. And I've really been enjoying some of the more strategy or leadership type classes I've been taking.
What was the executive MBA elective that you took?
It was actually investments, but it had been recommended to me by an MBA alum, and so that's why I took it. I really liked it. I don't know if I could do an MBA class where it was like part Saturday and part Sunday. So I liked that it was like all day Friday, which was nice.
Yeah, that's important to note. Executive MBA electives, there's some that meet only on Friday. There's some that meet on Saturday morning and Sunday morning. There's some that meet on Saturday afternoon and Sunday afternoon. There's also an online distance component too, as Jane mentioned, her class met, I think you said on Tuesday evening. So that's something you would want to think about as well, but just gives you a little bit more choice in terms of the classes if you have that kind of schedule flexibility. Meg, I know you and Jerry are early to the elective adventure. You're just starting to take electives. I think you're in your first elective quarter now. But how did you think about the electives that you chose for this quarter?
Yeah, so for me, it was generally about like what seemed most interesting and what seemed most relevant to, my career path and where I want to either enhance my learning or that I am just strongly interested in and that kind of thing. It's been exciting so far because I did appreciate the fact that we're able to tap into some of the executive electives, some of the other part-time class electives, and it's actually kind of nice to mix up the classmates that you're with, just to kind of get new perspectives and meet new people. So that was kind of an unexpected element of like the elective offerings. I actually also took a J-term elective this past January. So I guess that's another option that's kind of in the mix. And that was a mix of full-timers, MBAs, part-timers. And so it was a really cool class, just to kind of, again, get to meet some new people. And I really appreciated being able to knock out a class during January when things are kind of quiet. Because I think the other way that I've looked at electives is really just trying to balance things out with what I anticipate work may be during specific times of the year. So in May, for me, I know I have a lot of conferences, a lot of travel, and I was able to do an async elective offering. So that at least is one less class that I need to think about attending during a scheduled time during that quarter, which was really helpful. So I've just kind of liked the flexibility so far with electives.
Couple follow-up questions. Can you tell us about the January term elective that you took?
Yeah, so that one was marketing leadership, and we had an amazing professor, super experienced and knowledgeable about marketing leadership, that really kind of tried to make the classes applicable to our careers as possible. So we learned about like recruiting even, and how to kind of like position yourself in like recruiting in the future, and some tactics to kind of help. I guess it's really like marketing yourself, right? But then we also learned about marketing leadership functions, and how to kind of position marketing as more of a growth engine for a company, which was really interesting to me because I work really closely with our marketing team at work, and so I got a lot out of that class. And it's condensed, so it's about a week long, but it was a really good week of learning. So
And what's an async elective?
asynchronous just means like you do it on your own time, and so I've heard there it's still a lot of work, but at least like you don't have to necessarily be present during a scheduled time, or in person, virtual, and that kind of thing. So it's more on your own time.
Yeah, they're typically, deliverables along the way that kind of keep you on a certain schedule. So it's not entirely self-paced, but you're right, it has no like, oh, you have to show up at this time for a class. So if you're looking for a little bit more flexibility, an asynchronous elective, which I think there's probably 3 or 4 of those at this point, maybe not all offered at the same time. There's one around pricing, one around valuation. I think there's an operations one that's being developed. There's one on digital marketing. So more of these likely to come, and they've proven popular across all of our MBA programs. Again, just give folks a little bit more flexibility. And let's say you really wanted to load up in a particular order, as has been discussed. You want to take 3, maybe 4 electives. That is an option of adding on to your electives. You oftentimes hear people do like an independent study or an asynchronous elective if they're looking to sort of take more electives at a given time. Jerry, how do you think about your elective choice?
Yeah, I would say about a little bit of a 50-50. As far as this point in my career, I don't think I have the certainty to say exactly like what area I want to move into. And so I would say like the way I've selected my electives is one, and trying to improve on the skills that I'm already using at work. So, right now in my current role, I'm doing a lot of like presenting out to like different like pricing recommendations, like leadership, right? And I'm sure most companies are like extremely data driven. So I'm taking 2 classes that are one about storytelling with data, and then telling financial stories, because that's like directly kind of what I'm doing right now. But as far as like looking at future electives, I think, looking at potential areas that I want to move into. So, like digital marketing, things like that. I'm not doing a lot of like equity or like marketing communications work right now, but I think it is definitely still an area that I'm interested in and might want to pursue sometime in the future as well. I would say also, I think it does depend on, kind of how your company operates, and how much career planning you've done up until this point. Because I think at my company, there is a approach of like nurturing and developing more like generalist brand managers, as opposed to like, everyone picking like somewhat of a specialty and sticking to it. And so like, because I have the confidence, I'm like, oh, I can like move to these like different roles in my company. Like, should an opening, come up, and I'd be interested in it. So, kind of like, putting a pin in that, like, I think, yeah, one, just trying to improve on some of the skills that I think would help me in the short term. And then 2, picking classes that would kind of just, one, satiate like my natural curiosity for all these like different subjects, and be positioning myself for moves in the future.
All right, well, let's look specifically about what you're taking in this quarter. As I mentioned, students take classes in 2-month quarters. 2 quarters equals 1 semester. That's sort of the basic math of it all. Jane, what classes are you taking right now?
So I'm also in the storytelling with data elective, and then I'm in leading with influence.
Right. Alexis, you mentioned you're just taking 1 class right now. What are you taking?
I'm just taking leading with influence.
Okay, get some overlap here. Meg, how about you?
I'm in healthcare innovations and solutions, which is an executive elective, and then telling financial stories.
Okay, and Jerry, I think you mentioned you're taking storytelling with data and telling financial stories. Is that right?
Yep.
Okay, all right. Always just fun to hear the courses that people are taking. I wonder if y'all have a favorite course that you've taken thus far. Start with the 25s again, because you just had a chance to take more classes than everybody. Jane, do you have a favorite class that you've taken? It could be a core class, it could be an elective.
I'm trying so hard to think. I did actually enjoy the second marketing core class, I think it was, where we did a simulation with the like a car, like you were a car company. And that was the bulk of the class, so I think that might be my favorite.
Yeah, Strat Sim. I think that's
Yes.
our executive MBA students get to do that when they're actually going to do it here with the class they'll be finishing up this August when they're down in Charlottesville for their second leadership residency. And the full-time MBA students also do that as part of their program. Alexis, do you have a favorite class?
Wow. I'm gonna bend the rules because I can't pick just one. Um, I would say FinTech was an executive MBA class I took that I really, really, really enjoyed. And it was very surprising to me that I like actually was like geeking out. So I really enjoyed that class. I've also really enjoyed the J term classes I've taken. So I took marketing leadership with Professor Kim, and then I also took behavioral decision making, which was all online. And I really enjoyed that class um, as well. So I think, yeah, I would say those are my top three classes.
We'll take more than one. That's totally fine. It's within the rules. Meg, do you have a favorite class so far?
Yeah, well, I will say I also really like the classes that were mentioned so far. Those were some of my favorites. So to add to the mix, I really liked our first decision analysis class, which I feel like is a controversial stance, but that was one of my favorites. And I've also really enjoyed the healthcare class that I'm in now, given its relevancy. So, yeah.
What did you like about decision analysis? Because I know, as you mentioned, it is one of those classes that can kind of have a little bit of polarity to it in terms of people's reaction. It is a DA1, using a lot of Excel. You're doing all kinds of sort of a little bit of modeling to kind of figure out your decision options, what you might want to do. What did you like about that class?
Yeah, I just think at its core, you talk a lot about like decision trees and kind of walking yourself through the options at hand, and I think that's just a really valuable skill that we can all take away from this MBA, and just to be able to kind of look, more logically and practically at a situation, and add in some probability in term to help you kind of like really make a sound business decision. So that's what I liked about it.
Most of the classes in the core have a part one and a part two. So there's DA1, decision analysis one, decision analysis two. That's the case with most classes. The only exception to that is strategy, leadership communication, and business ethics. Those only have one class component. Jerry, do you have a favorite course or courses thus far?
Yeah, I would say maybe it's a little bit of recency bias since we had it closer to when this session is, but I loved ethics. I thought it was just so much fun. Um, I think that, with some of the other classes like finance or like accounting, right? Like folks will come in with, all sorts of different background that might give them a little bit more information on the subject. I think a lot of the folks who did ethics, I don't think any of us really came from like a philosophy background or anything like that. So I felt like in that sense, it was very equalizing. What was also really enjoyable about, I mean, I think naturally I feel a little bit passionate about this subject because I've also had my own skepticism on the, ethics of business. So it was kind of great to have a class to like really interrogate that. Our professor was really good as well. But generally, I also thought it was just very helpful to it was grounding to see the differing opinions on, whatever subject matter it was we were discussing in class. Because, I think I surround myself with, certain people who share, beliefs and value systems, and to kind of like confront folks who might challenge that or disagree with that, I think it's just a helpful environment to, foster growth.
Yeah, ethics is one of those classes where you're going to have a lot of interesting conversations. And Darden is a place that sort of really preaches stakeholder theory, stakeholder management, and that's woven into all of your classes. Of course, you do have a dedicated class called business ethics, but you'll be having ethical conversations in all of your classes as you discuss the decisions that you think should be made as part of these case discussions. There will always be kind of an ethical angle that will bubble up, or will often bubble up, I should probably say. So we got time for just a couple more questions here. One of the things that we've all touched on here is just how busy you are doing a part-time program. Meg, how have you figured out how to make work and life and school coexist? How have you done this?
Great question. Have I done this? No. I think it's just been important to really stay on top of the scheduling. I kind of mentioned, I travel a good bit for work, and it's been challenging at times because you're, looking ahead, like, is that conference, is that going to be an in-person class that I have to miss, or virtual class? I guess if there's anyone listening that does travel for work, I think it is manageable, but it is an added layer of complexity with all this. And so just really staying organized and ahead of the dates and things in which you need to be different places has really helped me a lot. I've had one or two times where I've realized, like, oh, shoot, I really can't miss that class. And so looking ahead in the syllabus is something I learned to do pretty early on.
Yeah, the nice thing is that we already have the calendar for the first 2 semesters of the program now. So if anybody looking to start this August, it should be out there on the website. And of course, there's a whole team of people who support part-time MBA students as they go through the program. There's a dedicated advisor for part-time MBA students. The faculty obviously work closely with students. They understand what it's like to teach working professional students, and what that may mean in terms of student schedules. So have those conversations early, often. Stay engaged, leverage those resources. Jerry, how about for you? You mentioned your support network earlier, but just like from a time management approach, what does this look like for you to figure out how to make these things coexist?
Yeah, I mean, similar to what Megan mentioned, I'm not sure if I've like truly ever cracked the code on this. I mean, ultimately, I think it comes down to just like prioritization. For me, I've kind of decided, like, my company's paying for my program, and so like work comes first, definitely, for me. But of course, within reason, right? There are certain times where I might have to negotiate some scheduling stuff with my work for like when they do in-person meetings, or when I travel to try and like make sure that I can, stay on top of my coursework. I think planning ahead is definitely going to be a big one. I will also say that, like, at a certain point, at least within the core program, you kind of fall into a little bit of a routine, just because your classes are always on the same days, and so just making sure that you're staying on top of, like, hey, I set this frame of time to do my pre-work for these classes, and like sticking to that, I think, is going to be really helpful. But also being gracious with yourself when things bend and give, because I think, like, I've never ran a marathon, but I like feel the way that people describe it, that like at a certain point within the program, maybe like a year in, it's like November, December, like you just hit a certain wall, where it can just be really tough to, like, one, find motivation to just like really want to succeed at the level that you kind of start out with, or things like that. So I think, definitely also prioritizing your own health, your own rest, your own mental health. Like, I know that, the program talks about it, but like really taking that seriously, making sure that you're scheduling in breaks for yourself, plan a vacation, have things to look forward to. I think all the things that, it's not going to feel like you're either in school or you're either in work. It's going to feel like you're in school and work every minute, every time, while also trying to find time, for yourself. And so, yeah, it's good. It's going to be tough to balance, and being prepared for that is going to be huge.
Yeah, you really do have to be intentional about finding time for yourself here. I think that's something that's important to internalize. There are no extended breaks in this program. So once you start, you're kind of rolling through the program. December is about as long a break as you'll get, a couple weeks around the holiday period. Now, there are some time hacks you can do along the way, right? For example, exam period, you set your own schedule during the exam periods. If you take all your exams at the beginning of the exam period, typically we'll have 2 exams to take. Once you're done with exams, you have time off. You also have, to Jerry's point, this alternating in-person, virtual schedule. And so maybe you want to do some personal travel around one of those virtual weeks. You plan to dial in for class, but you can be anywhere for that and make that work. And so people do still find time to take vacations and to do these things that are important and restorative for them. And I would encourage folks to do that because thinking about where our third year students are who are on this call, they're in quarter 16 of this program. If I'm doing the math right, quarter 16, roughly speaking, it's about 32-ish months into the program. That's not an insignificant amount of time. And to be able to sort of manage your energy through that, you have to do those things that are important for your mental health. So, Alexis, how about for you? How have you managed the program?
Life is all about glass balls and rubber balls and knowing, as you're juggling everything, understanding what's a glass ball and what's a rubber ball. So for me, sometimes school is a glass ball, sometimes it's a rubber ball. One of the things is like trying to carve out time that's like sacred. So especially when you get into electives, like Saturdays and Sundays are sacred. Although I did take that exec class, which was fine and fun, but like I typically try to do my schoolwork during the week so that like my Saturday and my Sunday like really is a time of like rest and restoration and I can do whatever it is and make of the weekend whatever it is that I want. Um but yeah, I would just say it's really all a balancing act. And when you get to electives, it's easier, to how you want to schedule your course load. Do you want to go heavy in terms of things? Are you making things light? And whenever I did take 3 courses, one of them definitely was asynchronous, which definitely did help in terms of scheduling and time management, is giving yourself the flexibility that you need and definitely extend yourself grace as well as your family members and your loved ones because they do miss you. And sometimes they don't understand what is going on and why are you doing. They don't always get it. So just be patient and extend grace.
Jane, how about for you? How have you managed the schedule? You mentioned sort of finding that 2 classes at a time really kind of work best for you, but how have you managed your time through the program?
So I've kind of done the opposite of Alexis, and one day during the weekend, whether it's Saturday or Sunday, has become like my homework time. Um, and that way I still have one day where I can do whatever I want, but I work in consulting, so sometimes the hours can be, not as predictable or not as standard. So getting it always done during the week is not possible. I've also done the get up at 5 a.m. and do my readings with my coffee or take my tablet and walk on the treadmill and do my readings too. And I've done that like at gyms, so in hotels or my gym or the gym at our office. So, I mean, that's how I've tried to fit it in.
Yeah, there's different approaches for all kinds of different students. You can meet 5 students in our part-time program, and they all have a different way of managing their time. It's just kind of trying to figure out what works best for you and your schedule and what's going to have you feeling the healthiest, sort of most energized as you go through the program. So last question here. We got just maybe a minute or two. We're going to do a lightning round here. We'll start with you, Jane, just kind of where we began. A piece of advice for our prospective student attendees tonight who are thinking about their own MBA journeys.
I would say that one piece of advice I have is like set good habits early in the program, especially when it comes to managing your time. But also make sure that you spend some time to build those relationships with the people in your class, because I would say that I'm very close with a couple people in my class. Like a few of them came to my wedding. So these are friendships that I'll take with for me for a long time.
Alexis, what's your piece of advice?
I'm going to be very practical, give you a life hack. Speechify is great for getting through cases. I'm slightly a slow reader, so it will read the cases to you. Definitely spring for premium while you drive in the car. So that's one way that's really helped me gain back a lot of time just by listening to cases.
All right, Jerry, how about you? Piece of advice.
Yeah, I think be clear on what you want to get out of the program. I mean, ultimately, when you're in these classes, you can get as much or as little out of them just based on how much effort you put in, and you can kind of see people on all different spots on that spectrum. So like if you want to get your MBA, go to your classes, take them seriously, and know that there will be room for you.
All right, Meg, you get the last word here.
Yeah, well, I need to take Alexis's advice and use that tool. That would be good to know about. My advice would be I'll put a plug in for Darden before Darden, which is like a offering for you to come and kind of run through some cases before the residency week and the program starts. That really helped alleviate a lot of my fears and anxiety about starting the program. And it was a great way to start to get to know my classmates. So that's just a piece of advice coming in to consider.
Yeah, we have this. It's both virtual and in person. So there's some virtual sessions and an in-person session. This is for incoming part-time MBA and executive MBA students. It'll be the week of July 14th this year. 3 virtual sessions and then an in-person Saturday. And that in-person Saturday will line up with an outing to Nats Park that we'll do for all the incoming students as well. So high value opportunity to get to know a lot of people before the start of the program and maybe make that first week of school feel less like the first week of school. So I want to thank all our current students for their time this evening, and to our prospective students, thanks so much for joining for this webinar. As always, we recorded the session and we'll plan to share out a link to the recording to everybody who registered. But thanks again for your interest in the part-time MBA program. And I'll just mention today is our 4th of 5 deadline. So April 1, we've got one remaining deadline. June 1, still working on the part-time class. So looking probably wrap things up in the summer. So still time to apply if you're curious. So thanks everybody for your time and have a great evening. Bye everyone.
Good luck, y'all.
Bye, thanks.
And that was a conversation with current part-time MBA students here at the Darden School of Business discussing the elective period of the part-time MBA program. As always, if you have any comments, suggestions, requests, anything you'd like for us to cover here on the podcast, we're all ears. We can be reached at exec, that's EXECMBA@darden.virginia.edu. Until next time, stay safe, be well, and thanks for listening.